Thanks for joining us today. Financial issues are plaguing multiple Wisconsin education facilities. Milwaukee Public Schools, the largest school district in the state, could be audited after calls from Governor Tony Evers today. More on that in just a moment.
The University of Wisconsin is facing their own fiscal woes, with the Oshkosh campus dealing with the largest deficit in the system. It's an issue that university administrators have been taking action on through employee layoffs, early retirement buyouts, and other budget cuts. Students and staff protested decisions with a walkout back in October. The school trimmed its workforce by 216 last year, with an additional 34 positions unfilled in addition to those new vacancies. UW officials previously said those cuts would significantly reduce the university's deficit. However, a new report is saying the cuts are not having as big of an effect as once believed, and new filings from administrators could affect the campus's physical landscape as well. Emily Byer joins us in Oshkosh with a first alert update.
UW-O right now has a $7.6 million deficit. Chancellor Andy Levitt saying that's really due to timing, but before the end of the year they do expect to see that number drop, but it's still a rough road ahead. They've got a new loan and possibly several buildings being torn down on campus. Chancellor Andy Levitt saying the Board of Regents and the universities of Wisconsin have agreed to a low-interest loan for the total of that $7.6 million, and they don't expect to have to take out another one with the strategy they have in plan. The chancellor saying recent layoffs resulted in some one-time expenses, inflating that budget deficit, he says temporarily. The university laid off 140 people and had 76 retirements. Those positions came with payouts such as leave time, sick time, and for those retirees, there was the retirement incentives. Chancellor Levitt says once we cross over into the month of July, they'll see that number go down. The university releasing a letter detailing plans to go forward with continuing to tackle that budget. Chancellor Levitt telling me today the university has submitted requests to the Department of Administration to decommission and demolish some buildings on campus. Those included in the request are Donner and Webster Hall, both built in the 1960s, and Radford Hall and Grunenhagen Hall. The chancellor saying the cost to remodel them into more efficient housing is simply not cost effective.
We could renovate those spaces, but the cost of renovation would be comparable just to tearing them down and building what the students want. So the long-term vision here is that as we take these buildings down, we need to replace them with more modern suite-style residence halls, much like our Horizon Village hall that we have on campus, which is exactly what we need more. Very popular residence hall on campus.
Now, of course, they're waiting for approval and they anticipate savings with these decisions. The university using third-party assessments to look through their plans and their efforts to restructure their financial situation. They say by the end of 2026, the university will have eliminated its structural deficit. Reporting in Oshkosh, Emily Byer, Action 2 News.